Hey everyone. So I decided to do a bit of a different podcast episode this time and talk to a few different event and wedding industry vendors about how they are handling everything with COVID-19. It's been really enlightening to hear about how each and every one of these vendors is really going above and beyond with their customer service, how they're working on utilizing their existing contract language, but also ensuring that they're modifying and amending dates and services to reschedule with clients as much as possible, and just overall, how these vendors are navigating this unknown time. Guys, I talked to a wedding planner, florist, DJ, photographer, videographer, and more, and I'm so excited for you to tune into 5 to 10 minute mini chats with each of them. Now, many of these vendors also part with a few nuggets of wisdom, so make sure you listen in carefully. Let's get to it, Legal Pagers. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. Okay, everyone. So next up, we have Tyler Spire from Tyler Spire Events. He's also a florist. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Tyler, can you let everyone know kind of what you do, where you're located, all of the good stuff?
Yeah. So me and my team are located in Santa Barbara, California, and we plan luxury weddings in California, close to home, but also all over the country and all over the world. We do planning and design and florals in-house. Been in business for 11 years, and we love what we do.
Yeah, you guys, Tyler's one of my really good industry friends, and I asked him to jump on here and kind of talk through his scenario because Tyler's obviously in California, which has been impacted in one of kind of the first states to be impacted as a whole. And so, Tyler, I would just love for you to kind of talk through, what the past couple of weeks have looked like for your business and how you're working with clients and the contracts that they signed. And obviously, you have a very, unique perspective as well, because when I was talking to you, you're kind of taking on the burden for your clients and trying to coordinate with all of these vendors. So I'd love to hear your perspective on everything.
Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, when the CDC made their recommendation, sort of before any official quarantine or being told to shelter in place, made the recommendation for no events over 50 people for the next 8 weeks. I sort of, I remember getting the news and feeling like the cold pricklies going down my spine of, oh boy, here we go. And so we immediately that night, I jumped on my computer, even though it was a Sunday, and I try not to work on Sundays, but just emailed all of my clients in the next 8 weeks to try to get in front of the communication. I didn't want them to be reaching out to me. I wanted them to go to their computer and see a communication from me before we even got started with this thing. And we worked with all of our couples getting married in the next 8 weeks to postpone their events to later this year. It was really hard. We had a lot of hard conversations with couples, helping them kind of brainstorm through what that looked like. And then I personally, for every single one of those couples, regardless of like the level of services they had paid for, just me and my team decided we're going to step up and be the all-inclusive, take care of everything and make sure this moves forward smoothly. Because I just find that there's so much room for miscommunication. There's so many things shifting. And so having one professional leading the charge per se, we found to be instrumental in making all of our replans go smoothly. So as of yesterday, our last sort of contracts were signed and done, and it looks like we're successfully replanned for the next 8 weeks.
That's wonderful. And so were you able to move over kind of entire vendor teams, or what did that look like for you and your clients?
Great question. So for 2 of our weddings that were going to happen, 2 of our larger weddings, we were literally able to transplant the event from one date in April to a date later this year. Vendor teams, timing, venue, everything.
Wow.
So that is lucky. And that went really well. It was difficult to do, but we were able to do it. And I'm really thankful for that. For another couple of our events, what we ended up doing is just kind of rethinking what the event would look like altogether.
Mm-hmm.
We tried our best to keep the same vendor teams in place. In a couple cases, there were certain vendors not available, so the client did lose their non-refundable retainer, but it was in the interest of everything else going, it was worth it to lose that and sign with a different vendor rather than, whatever other alternatives there were. So for some of the events, we just had to totally rethink what the event would look like. Maybe doing one of our events is going to do like a weekday ceremony with just their family and make it really intimate and beautiful. And we're going to bring in like all the flowers and all the things and just make it gorgeous. And then they're going to have a hotel celebration on the weekend following that, where they'll invite all of their guests that would have attended the large wedding. And they're actually really excited about it. And I'm excited about it. I think that's a really fun kind of way to rethink the structure and still include the whole vendor team, but just celebrate a little bit differently than we originally planned.
Yeah, so interesting and so unique how all couples are really kind of faced with what's happening in front of them right now. And everyone's in the same boat if you're, getting married here in the next month or two. It's really just rethinking how can you, move everything or change things up to make it unique to you and what you and your soon-to-be spouse want to do. So I think that's incredible. How has it been with contracts? Of course, I have to ask that question because the name of the game right now is reschedule, don't cancel. Have you had any pushback with that? How has it worked on your front to really utilize the contracts that you have signed with your clients and kind of transfer over fees paid?
Great question. I would say, first of all, with all of our clients, we work really hard to have strong relationships and open communication and trust. And that was well before all of this happened. So thankfully, I never had to pull out our contract and wave it in front of the client and be like, here's the deal.
Yeah.
We were able to communicate much more on the front end. In terms of being able to transfer things over, move things over, it's gone relatively smoothly. And yeah, I mean, we've just moved, retainers forward to future dates. For some of our, if it's a completely new sort of scope of work, we had to, cancel the former contract, start a whole new one. Some it was just an amendment, depending on the situation.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I've been talking with people once they answer that question. I'm like, really, it's so client specific. And then if you do want to change the scope of work, and that kind of seems to be, I'd say 50-50, right? Some situations are just moving forward as planned, as long as we can get everybody on board. And, even if you're just a photographer per se, maybe you're just dealing with that specific client with your contract with your client. But with you, it's you might have to completely change scope of work, and you're doing the right thing here. So everyone listening in, it really is canceling that previous contract. And you guys know I've talked about this previously. That's the best way to move forward right now, because the scope of work and kind of the contract as a whole, really, it's not what you're going to be doing in the future. So kind of canceling that previous agreement, telling the clients what you're doing with fees paid kind of on his credit, and then transferring those over to kind of this new contract or scope of work. So I love that that's how you're approaching all of this. Tyler, another follow-up question I have is floral wise. And I know you primarily do kind of all-inclusive. I know you do planning and florals and many other things. But from a florist perspective, okay, if you were just doing florals for people, I'm sure you have heard this maybe in groups that you're in, or you've talked to other florists. I know you're friends with lots of them. How are they going about this in terms of they've probably bought, cost of goods sold sort of, wholesale pricing. I'm sure people have already put in orders. How is that working for florists when kind of a lot of your services have already been performed or fees have been paid towards florals?
That is such a good question. It really varies across the country and across different wholesalers and what it looks like to get your product. For me and for a lot of vendors locally, we are able to cancel orders up till 14 days before. It's kind of that magic number. So
okay.
For me, I did lose some money on product. We had orders that were placed with it for things that were happening within 14 days. I worked with my wholesaler. They like gave me a great discount on the product. They understood.
Gotcha.
And we just went and gave flowers to all of our neighbors. It was kind of one of those things. I made the personal choice not to charge the client for that because I knew that my business could financially handle that. Although it would have been within contract to charge the client for that cost of goods sold. I just chose to do something different because it worked for me and my business.
Yeah. And again, that's, you just answered that so beautifully because really it is as I'm talking with people, if you look at a bird's eye view of like your business as a whole, I think that's where we're all at. We're looking at, where has our communications been with our clients from the get-go? Have we built that relationship? Like you have done a phenomenal job. You've been in business for a while. Like that is your business, right? Like serving and over delivering for your clients. And when you've done that from the get-go, then you're not going to have a ton of pushback with clients during this time period. And you're going to be able to work with them and be malleable and, change things and alter things to your clients' needs and also be able to take on, the burden of those costs of goods sold. But I know, for other florists out there, vendors out there who have bought goods, it is within contract to be able to charge your clients. You just really, at the end of the day, have to weigh everything. Is it worth it to your business to do that? We're already looking at kind of financial viability and stress on our businesses right now. It's probably best to absorb those costs so that you don't have any repercussions or word of mouth or anything along those lines, even though it's within contract, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. Even though your contract is there for a reason and it's there to help you in times of, trouble. I think this is just like a unprecedented time. That's, I'd say the buzzword that everyone's using right now. And it's impacting both parties. And so you really have to look at your business as a whole and how it's going to move forward in the next, 12 months or so. So Tyler, thank you for giving us that perspective on your business.
Yeah.
Any last words for people? I know you've been sharing really wonderful things on your social media accounts on just how you would suggest, wedding vendors as a whole and the industry as a whole kind of moves forward in all of this. We don't know what the next, 2-3 months are going to look like, but what is your outlook here on everything, I'd say in the next year or two?
Yeah. So I would say first, just a bit of advice is to be kind. I think that all of us, like across the entire world, from our clients to the vendors to everybody, are feeling an incredible amount of stress and just kind of looking at this current situation. And there's so much uncertainty. And so just approaching every conversation with kindness and trying to see where someone's coming from. For example, when I did have to cancel my floral orders, I told my supplier, hey, this event is going to be rescheduled. I'm going to order it from you. We may not see the profit now, but we're going to work together later. Like just encouraging those people that, hey, I've still got your back. We're still on the same team, even though things are changing.
Right.
Also, kind of as we represent ourselves and our businesses, I think that it's so important to maintain just a very pragmatic, positive approach to how we present ourselves. I'm not going to lie. I've had my vent sessions to my good friends, or I've had my moments where I've talked to my wife and been like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But that's not how I'm presenting myself to my clients. It's not how I'm presenting myself on social media, because how we carry ourselves through difficult times really can define who we are as a company. And for example, like with a wedding planner, you don't hire a wedding planner for when everything's going perfectly. You hire us for how we handle ourselves when things aren't going perfectly and making sure that you're taken care of. And so I think those are my two just sort of bits of advice: being kind and just really presenting yourself with confidence and being very pragmatic in your decisions and not spreading more stress and fear when there's already so much of that out there.
Yeah, the best way that you could have put it. Tyler, thank you so much for giving that, little nuggets of advice to everybody listening in. Tyler, where can people find you?
The best place to probably find me is on Instagram, and my handle is @TylerSpire, or you can just look up Destination Wedding Planner and we'll pop right up in your feed.
Perfect. You guys, Tyler he's such a wealth of information. I love watching his social media. He brings joy to my day as well. And of course, we'll link all of his social media accounts on this episode when we publish it. Tyler, thank you so much for giving your time and just being here with us all. I can't thank you enough for being on here.
My pleasure.
Hey everyone. So next up we have Abby Clinton from Got Your Back, and it's actually spelled BACH, like bachelorette parties, bachelor parties. And she is here to kind of talk about what she is dealing with rescheduling all kinds of bachelorette parties. I think her business is super interesting in the services she offers. So Abby, thanks for jumping on. Thanks for chatting with everybody. If you could just let everybody know kind of what you do, where you're based out of, and the business that you run, that'd be great.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm Abby with Got Your Back, and we are a full service bachelor and bachelorette planning company. So we plan everything from a lodging to booking your, all your meal reservations. We go to the extent to have vision boards planned. We have an in-house event designer, so we event brand everything that we do. So everything from, having your own event invitation, your logos, everything. We just want to make sure that every experience is a one-of-a-kind experience here at Got Your Back.
Awesome. And where are you guys based out of? Obviously, you do bachelor parties throughout the U.S., I'm guessing, and probably, I don't know, maybe in other countries too. Who knows? But where are you based out of?
Yeah, so we're here based out of Texas. We're in Dallas.
Cool. So you guys, she's got the funnest Instagram account ever. So follow her. I'll make sure to tag her, of course, in this episode's show notes. And she's just I'm planning my bachelorette party and she gives me massive inspo. So go there. Abby, what we're asking all event industry professionals right now is kind of like what's happening in the state of the world. Okay. It's an unprecedented situation for everyone, but you in particular, obviously, your services are precipitated by events that are occurring within a certain time period, a close time period. It's usually not, kind of within the month of, probably a couple months of is usually generally speaking when people host their bachelor and bachelorette parties. But how are you now handling, since people are having to cancel their weddings, how are they canceling and rescheduling your events that you're hosting with them? How is that going with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we're really trying to push the postpone and don't cancel. Here at Got Your Back, we try, once they inquire with us, depending on how close their bachelorette is to the time that they, inquire with us, we give them a full custom itinerary within 4 to 6 weeks. We actually we give them a full all-inclusive price, so including their lodging, their meals, and everything. And that includes our service fee as well. So depending on when their bachelorette is, we plan everything ahead of time. So obviously our services are included, and no matter what, our services are completed. So it's been a really tough decision. Obviously, everyone is going through with this, but we have actually decided to keep our service fee and return or refund all of the services that have not been completed. So, the lodging with Airbnb has been super wonderful with the cancellation, and they're giving full refunds. Obviously, meals that haven't been done, but we did have some bachelorettes that had ordered shirts or hats or something custom, and we still pay our vendors because obviously we're still trying to support small businesses and wanting to make sure that everybody is doing their part. So we've kept our service fee, and we've kept paying our vendors if they had already completed items. Specifically, like we had one bachelorette that was going to Miami this weekend. They did super cute, like MTV crop tops, and obviously they were already completed. So we wanted to make sure that our vendors are getting paid, but everything else was refunded. But we are really trying to push the postpone and don't cancel, because these could be trips that you could do as couples after the wedding, or even a girls trip, or you could still do your bachelorette, because a lot of the weddings are getting postponed. So, push them to the summer, push them to early fall, and make sure, you are helping your vendors and just really understanding that we're all going through this together.
Yeah, I mean, you're going really above and beyond here. And I was talking with another wedding planner, and you guys are kind of in the same boat where this is where your guys' services really step in and where you can take the brunt of all of these emotions and everything that your clients are going through. And you can be like, quite literally, I've got your back. Like, let me handle this for you. Let me set you up with how we can postpone, these events and still have them to the best of your ability. There might not be a couple people who can attend now because you're moving the dates or what have you. But I'm sure lots of clients are being really, really considerate in those circumstances when you're trying to do everything for them. And I was saying, with your guys' services, people now probably wish they had bachelorette planners. They wish they had wedding planners. So it's a really, really good time for you to just over deliver like crazy, because I could see the trickle down effect here in the future. And speaking of trickle down effect, I love how you touched on contractors you work for. And this is a huge thing for people in the industry right now, is we all hire out kind of contractors. We work with other vendors. We, have cost of goods sold, wholesale prices of things that we've purchased. And Abby, I'd love for you to speak to this, kind of how you guys document things. And this is a really good, probably suggestion for people moving forward that do similar things to you, is how do you guys kind of keep track of hours for all of the people that work for Got Your Back? Like, how are people keeping track of hours and the services they have performed? Because ultimately what you can do is what you're saying, like you can, like legally, you can keep fees for services you've performed. But, a lot of us, and you've heard this probably rolling around now too, are having a hard time being like, well, now I have to backpedal to document what I've done. So how do you guys go about doing that, just as, general standard operating procedures?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, a lot of documentation. We mainly communicate with our clients via email, and then we have our client management system. We actually do our itineraries kind of as questionnaires, so that when they are completed, they can give us feedback on what they're thinking, if they want to change something, for a dinner or what have you. So we're just making sure that all of those are documented. And then as far as my employees go, everyone is managed on Trello, and they log their hours of like what they're doing. So I have all my girls right now working on blogs like, how to have a bachelorette at home for those girls that are having to cancel, but can, kind of have a couple girls, 10 girls over at the house. And what can you do? And just like little things like that. And we're really just trying to give back to our vendors as much as possible. We have people that send us things in order to, photograph them and give them content. So we're just like, I asked someone to send me an invoice who sent me something for free. And I was just like, I want to support you guys and make sure that, we're all in this together and we're really having, each other's backs.
Yeah. And the most important thing here for everyone tuning in is like, you guys have seen kind of this general theme of like refundability isn't a viable option for a lot of businesses, like refunding everything. Potentially you can refund at this point the services you haven't performed and all of the sale of goods that haven't been purchased. But for you, I love that you like have a documentation in place that you for everyone else tuning in, it's probably a good idea to start clocking your hours just like an employee would. You have to think of yourself as kind of an employee now moving forward, to be able to prove that you did, work XYZ services. And Abby, I really love how you just said, like we even if they want to give it to us for free, you have to be the better business owner kind of at the top of the chain there, and like still be paying all of the vendors underneath to ensure the viability of our small business economy moving forward. So I love that. And, that all comes from you being the business owner who's saying like, this is our cancellation and rescheduling policy. We can't do that, but we can postpone, we can reschedule, but fees are still owed. So I love that. And I think that that's a really good message to end on here of there are other people implicated with this, fees that are involved in your contract with your clients. So Abby, I've already told you, like, please plan my bachelorette party, you guys. I am a bride to be, if you can believe it. And I want people to know who you are. I love what you do. I love the services you offer to people. And planning bachelorette parties is like quite the undertaking now. So where can people find you if they need you? Because they definitely need you right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So our main spot is our brand new website that we just launched last week. It's Got Your Back, and it's BACH, like bachelorette. So, and that's gotyourback.com, on Instagram at gotyourback.co, and Pinterest. And that's just Got Your Back. And our Pinterest is blowing up with blogs at all times, and really just check out the ones where, you know, if you don't know where you're going, just click on there. We might have a city for you.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I'm going to link that. I've got a bunch of girlfriends too that they have. I am actually supposed to go to a bachelorette party in May. So I don't know if that's happening or what's going on, but she might need to call you.
I know my sister's
in that situation. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know it's critical this week and the time that you can give. So we really appreciate you being here on the Legal Paige podcast, and we will make sure to spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Did you know the Legal Paige shop features over 50 plus full-length contracts, 100 plus individual clauses, and bundles that you can use right now as a business owner to ensure your contracts and all clauses in them are fully legally legit? It's as easy as purchasing, downloading, modifying, and then uploading into your client management system within minutes. All of our contracts are incredibly comprehensive and legal mumbo jumbo free. Just go to thelegalpaige.com. That's thelegalpaige.com now and take a peek. Okay, everyone. So next up, we have Alex Young with the Young's Photo and Film. Alex, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
So Alex, can you tell a little bit for everybody tuning in what you do, where you're kind of located, and just give everyone a little bit of intro about yourself.
I'm Alex, like Paige said. I am the videographer and also the business manager for the Young's Photo and Film. I work side by side with my wife, Veronica. She basically does a lot of the client interactions as well as the photography stuff. I don't know if I said it, we're based in St. Louis.
Awesome. Yeah. And you guys, I met Veronica and Alex through a community called Hustle and Flow, and they've really kind of ramped up this, videography side of their business here the past year. And so I wanted to have Alex on just to chit chat about, what they're doing with not only photography clients, but also the videography side of their business during this time. So Alex, can you just let everyone know where you guys are at right now with reschedulings and cancellations and working with your contract and your clients during this time period?
So far to date, knock on wood, we have not had any cancellations, and we've been able to successfully reschedule every single one of our clients. I attribute a lot of that, and we've talked about this several times in the last several days, to the relationship that we've fostered with our clients from day one. And I think some companies' lack of doing that is kind of coming to surface because the clients are less willing to work with you when they don't feel that relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. How are you guys starting off the communication string with them? Because I know that's been kind of the talk of a lot of different education groups and communities on where do you start? Are you opening a can of worms, or do you just kind of tell them about here's your rescheduling policy, or here's the dates I have available on my calendar? How are you starting that inquiry for your clients?
Well, we are taking it day by day because things are changing sometimes multiple times a day.
Right.
But what we've done is already reached out to every single one of our couples to the end of the year, and we're being very proactive about it.
Oh, I like that.
And just opening it up to, letting them know that we're here for them no matter what. We are committed to making sure that their day goes off without a hitch, whatever that looks like, and that we want to know how they're feeling specifically. This, or in general, are you worried if you're in December if something's going to happen? And we're trying to just kind of reassure them and ease their minds because everybody's dealing with this.
Yeah. And I love that you're like, how are you feeling? Right. It has nothing to do with your services, nothing to do with the event, nothing to do with cancellation or rescheduling policies. Like you're leaving that out from the get-go. I really like that. Just how are you feeling? Like, how can we be here for you? And then opening up that conversation to, okay, what are the next best steps for all of us? So it's looking like reschedulings are happening.
Yes. And we're making sure we hop on an actual phone call with anybody who's directly affected. Like we've pretty much pushed ourselves all the way out to May now and had to reschedule almost everything.
Right.
In that middle period of time.
Yeah. Well, and that's good for everybody tuning in now too, because people aren't sure like what to do with May weddings, June weddings, July weddings, and just saying like, no, blanketly, we have reached out to everyone. And it's been extremely beneficial for us to kind of start the conversation now versus later, because it is changing so rapidly. Like obviously we woke up this morning, you guys were recording on Saturday, March 21st. And Alex and I just talked about all of these other statewide bans and stay-at-home orders that are being put into place, which is affecting people. Were in limbo. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they could host, smaller gatherings at venues or if they could just reduce their guest count. But now it's obviously like, no, you can't do that as a whole in various locations. And I think that's going to be continually changing now for the next 7 days. States are going to put that into effect. How are you guys handling like all of the fees paid? Are you keeping, all of that on credit? Have some of them decided on dates? Have some of them not decided on dates? And then what are you kind of doing with invoicing? I know some people are being strategic with invoicing. Yeah, just give us a little insight there.
Well, for starters, we bought your reschedule contract agreement, and that has been a lifesaver for us.
Oh, that's so good to hear.
So basically how we're approaching it is if they're directly affected, we reach out, ask what they're thinking, how they're wanting to proceed, because they know something's got to change. We don't have to continue to feed into that and just kind of make them worry more. So we're trying to help them with that. And as soon as they show inclination that they want to reschedule, we say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have you sign this reschedule contract so that, and we don't say, it's to protect us. It's to make sure your money is being used for these services. It protects your investment.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get them signed, and then we can move forward with trying to pick a date and trying to make sure that they're covered.
Gosh, I think you probably put that way more simpler than I ever have. So everybody listening in, like, seriously, Alex, it's so smart. You're like, this is for you. This is protecting you. I want you to know that we are doing X with the fees you've paid thus far. And then we'll work everything out in terms of future invoicing and, whatever package you decide to choose for later on. And, are you guys waiving kind of rescheduling fees and alerting them to that as well?
Absolutely. We're not charging anything to reschedule. And we're also adding, if they want to do a smaller ceremony, we're allowing them to just let us live stream. Even if they don't have a video package with us, we're going to set up a video camera and live stream for guests that can't be at the ceremony.
Yeah, over deliver. But yeah, you guys, everyone tuning in, I think that's really the good message here with Alex and I talking is they're not waiting for the clients to make the decision on what to do. They're just straight up being, putting their business owner hats on and saying they've got thousands of dollars in flux. Tell the clients, here is what we're doing to keep that money safe on, transferring and holding that kind of in a holding account probably is what you guys have set up now. We don't need to talk about finances, but I think that's what the majority of videographers and photographers need to hear is use the rescheduling contract. You can figure out later what you're going to do with updating services and updating your contract. And then you can split. Have a lot of clients liked that option as an option? Obviously they don't have to take it, but you guys being like, we can do 2 hours with just a small ceremony here. And then, we'll live stream it as well. And you'll have video. And then of course, lots of clients are still wanting to host a reception. Does that kind of seem like the general consensus across the board?
It seems kind of 50-50 really.
Okay.
As far as what they want. We did have one that wanted to split for sure, and we'd even gone as far as scheduling it. But before we could send the contracts out, we got another change. So then we have to change that. So luckily there hadn't been a contract set for those, so we don't have to redo a reschedule or anything. But we're being as flexible as possible, going as far as even contacting venues for couples to see what dates they have available and saying, here's 3 venues we reached out to, here are the dates they have. And then they can pull that with what they've already figured out. So it's basically doing some of the legwork for the couples, especially those that don't have planners.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like, can you step into their shoes and help them even more? So not only are you over delivering with adding on services that probably weren't provided in their previous package, but then you're helping them with rescheduling because you guys, these clients have like 10, 15 vendors that they're working with. But Alex, again, before we get off the recording here, I just really like your guys' approach with, don't worry about us, our contract, what we're doing. We are here. We will work with you on rescheduling. Let's just sign this. So everybody's kind of not worried about this previous contract that we had in place, and things are changing rapidly. And we don't want to end up trying to reschedule and sign a contract addendum, and then we have to redo that in 2 days. I love just sign the rescheduling contract, terminate the existing contract, hold on to fees paid, and then you guys will figure it out. And that's a good message to kind of send all event industry professionals with right now, is honestly with how quickly things are changing. That's the best way to go right now. So Alex, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, no problem. And I just want to say that we're approaching this in a situation of this whole thing is going to either make or break small businesses, I believe. And if you approach it with a customer service mindset, with empathy, I think you'll be golden.
Yeah, I think that's totally the name of the game right now, is if you just hold on to people's fees and you don't tell them why and you don't work with them and you're kind of being a stubborn or hard-ass business owner, I don't think that's going to bode well with clients and future clients and everything. So yeah, I love your guys' business approach, and I think it's going to make or break small businesses. So we all need to really figure out a very different approach to what we were doing previously, because no one saw this coming. Right. So Alex, where can people find you? I know everyone, I wanted to bring Alex on here because he is also just a genius set for business strategies and mindsets. And I have just seen him flourish and help people during this time as business owners, like photographers and videographers. I know Alex right now has really good insight into all of this. So Alex, where can they find you? And for everyone, if you need a videographer or photographer, they are phenomenal as well, you and your wife as a team. So business owners and clients, where can they come and get insight from you? We are the Young's Photo Film. We can get, our website is theyoungsphoto.com.
That is also our Instagram handle is @theyoungsphoto. And then you can find us on Facebook at The Young's Photo and Film.
Perfect, you guys. And you know that I'm going to link those in all the show notes and every promotional material that we have for this episode as well. So thanks, Alex, for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. So next up, I have actually 2 of some of my favorite people around and event industry professionals in my hometown in Montana. We have Jordan, who is the owner of a DJ company, an entertainment company here in all of Montana, not just Western Montana. And then we have his partner and also a good friend of mine, Emily, who is a wedding planner. So we're going to start with Jordan. Jordan, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today, Paige.
Yeah. So Jordan, can you tell kind of everyone the business that you run and how long you've been in it?
Absolutely. So I've been DJing about 6 years now. I've owned RMF Entertainment for coming up on 3 years. And we're coming up on a busy wedding season. So this whole thing has just been a huge curveball, I'm sure, for you, for everyone. And so I'm glad to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, curveball is definitely the way to put it. Definitely not foreseeable. Nobody saw this coming, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there. 2020 was popping. It was going to be a really great wedding season. I mean, it still is going to be. I'm getting married this year, so I hope it continues to be. But Jordan, in particular, how many events do you guys have or did have coming up in April and May?
Yeah. So April, we had about 6 weddings. May, we had, I want to say about 8 weddings. And then we've had a few that were affected already coming up in middle of the wedding season that are already hey, we're not even going to mess with it. So we're going to push it to another year.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just for everybody tuning in, so Montana has like a really weird wedding season. We don't really hit the ground running until about June, and then June through pretty much October is just nutso. So fortunately, we haven't been hit as hard as some other places in the United States where quite literally April is their biggest month. Right. But Jordan, can you kind of speak to what you have done for, I'm guessing all of those events have been canceled in April.
Yeah, absolutely. The ones within a 2-month range are all canceled. And that's been tricky because some haven't paid, some have paid in full. And we do have the contract that's protecting us, but at the same time, I'm still human. I understand that they're having, financial problems too. It's not just the small business. Right. It seems like it's everyone in the community is having issues with this. So it's taking a step back and, putting myself in their shoes sometimes as well.
Yeah. So are you guys primarily kind of doing what, I mean, generally speaking, I feel like as I keep talking to people on this podcast, we all seem to be doing the same thing, which is issuing credit for a certain period of time. Is that what you guys are doing, especially for, I think I've had people ask me like if they have a band, live band or DJ services, like what are you guys doing in terms of rescheduling?
Yeah, so it really just depends on what they want to do. And I think that's where the communication comes in. We're hoping to just move the dates instead of cancel them. It gets tricky when they want to cancel them because then we're fighting over, who gets what money. And I don't want it to be like that. I want it, typically in a perfect world, I'd like to just roll over the deposit to another date, hoping that we're not going to have a crazy influx of weddings that day as well. So hoping that we can kind of stagger some of these weddings so they're on, not as popular dates as they might have been before. And that's the trick. But yeah, we're essentially just trying to roll over that deposit and hoping that they hadn't already paid in full and we can work it out.
Yeah, that makes sense too. And speaking to like if it's available or not, I'm sure I know you have a team, right? How many guys and gals? Do you have a gal on your team or just all guys?
Yeah. We have 1 girl, 8 guys. So.
Awesome. So you guys, I work with them a lot, photography wise here in Montana. They're all stellar. I adore them. Best DJs and entertainers around. I recommend them to everyone. But for all of you Montana people listening in, they're going to be number one recommended by me. But Jordan, I'm guessing you're probably looking at like bringing on, if we're talking about associates or more contractors that can kind of fill this void for end of 2020 into 2021. Have you guys been talking about that to kind of serve your clients a little more?
Yeah, absolutely. And not as much as I probably should have. And you brought up a good point. I need to really get into that because how are we going to do, let's say half of our weddings aren't wanting to do it this year. How are we going to have the natural order of weddings that we're going to be in 2021 plus this year? So yeah, I mean, we just want to stick to quality. I think that's why I'm not trying to push more than 10 like we have in the past. We're cutting it back, really going to have more service, much higher quality DJs that can kind of perform under any circumstance. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I need to get on that more and really make sure that we have some plans in place for when that time comes.
Yeah, I mean, good point. Like, I think we're all thinking about that right now. I know photographers are like, crap, I didn't even think about an associate team. And now it's probably something I need to consider just because Saturdays, we all know this, Saturdays are really, really busy, especially in the fall in our region and kind of throughout the US. And then it's also, it's busy come probably 2021 just for those, June and July Saturdays are always super busy. Right. So I guess last question I have for you in particular with like DJ services is when, are you working and communicating with clients right away on you as a vendor? Are you waiting for clients to make that decision with venues? Are you communicating with venues? I know you guys have a little bit different relationship because you are a little closer with venues than other event professional. So how do you work that communication out?
So I wanted people right away have first mainly been coming to us, but I wanted to be more proactive. So I've been reaching out to the closer dates. And like I said, I think communication is key. As long as we kind of know where they're coming from, what's going on, I know what they've paid, what they haven't. Now that we're getting into, coming up onto June, that's when I'll really worry. But for now, we're kind of just going with the flow. The ones that are really concerned, we're getting back to right away and making sure that communication is key. But
yeah. And good point there as well, right? Don't like set the fire alarms on June events yet.
Right.
And I've been really talking about that with all the legal education I've been giving kind of to the event industry across the US this week is, you want to be in communication with them, but you don't want to like initiate kind of fear and hysteria for what could or could not happen come June. So I think it's really important, to like talk with everybody in the next 8 weeks, because that's kind of standard right now across the US on how long we think this is going to happen. And, big events, anything over pretty much 10 people is getting shut down. One last thing, I'm just curious, just from a DJ standpoint, are venues reaching out to you, or have you heard anything from venues in that respect? I know photographers aren't really getting talked to by venues, but I just didn't know, since you go to the same venues all the time.
Right. Yeah. We haven't really had any communication yet with the venues. So that I would assume should be something that we come up and discuss with them next on game plan.
Which is a good transition, because I'm guessing Emily is talking to all vendors and venues and clients. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you.
Super insightful. Good to hear that kind of DJs are doing the same thing in terms of transferabilities of deposits, retainers, reservation fees as other industry professionals. Emily, my dear, tell everyone what you do, the company that you own, and where you're at right now.
So I'm Emily. I own Emily Summer Studios. I am a wedding planner here in Missoula, but I work all over the state, and I do a few outside of Montana here as well. As far as this season, so, as you had mentioned, our wedding season is a little bit shorter than other places, and I've been luckier than Jordan and some other wedding industry people where I don't have too many early weddings. There's really only 2 that are, I guess, in danger right now, and one in April, one in May, and they're both destination weddings. So that's where it's been kind of tricky, because we don't really know the trajectory of where this is going to be and where. I feel like it's been so different for so many different places. Obviously, Montana is kind of different than California and
right
places. Yeah. So right now where I'm at is luckily our one in April, we have not canceled yet. So as of right now, we're essentially moving forward as planned, other than really, really cutting back on the guest list. Mm-hmm. So it's about 50% that's traveling for that wedding, and about 50% are here in Missoula and surrounding areas. It's looking like it'll probably just be mostly the local people and a couple of family members if they have to travel. But the bride has been so laid back and flexible, which is more than I could have ever asked for. So that's been very helpful. And that's just something that I've been telling my clients that are in, even if they have June weddings, whereas right now that's not really an issue, but it could be down the road, and trying to just, let them remember to be flexible, have an open mind. If things change, it's not going to be the end of the world. You're still going to get married. That's not going to change. And it might just look a little bit different than you originally planned. And so that's something that I'm trying to really communicate with my clients, and easier said than done. I understand, because
but you're able to help them obviously on the planning front. Nobody saw this coming, but I feel like everyone who has planners is kind of better off right now, because you as planners are kind of shouldering this burden for them, communicating with vendors, working with them. And it's really interesting because you're dealing with destination weddings, and you guys, Montana is actually kind of a destination wedding hub. People love coming here and I guess showing people what Montana is like. It's really cool. We will say it's beautiful, and people like to bring family and friends in from out of state to kind of have a destination wedding in Montana. So Emily, can you talk to maybe just a little bit more, how are your clients navigating travel with family members? Is it pretty specific based upon whether some family members can and cannot leave at this point? And it changes every day, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And exactly. So it's a little bit hard to plan exactly what to expect for this particular couple. My one in April, it's the last weekend in April. So it's really kind of at the tail end of that 8-week. I think it's about 6.5 weeks from when they first stated and on events over, I think it started at over 250. And then now I believe we're at over 50.
Right.
Events over 50 guests. And so for that one, as of right now, as far as people traveling, it is likely going to just be the groom's parents and siblings, as the bride's family is local here. And so everyone, as far as I know, is in good health at that point. And so it's not a concern for travel as of right now. Moving forward, that could easily change. And then the wedding I have in May, actually, the bride had coronavirus. So that's kind of been a little bit of a beast in its own.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's like, we can't predict what could happen to our clients or their wedding parties, or immediate family. Like, who knows?
Now we could be singing a different tune, and that's what's a little bit scary. But at the same time, you kind of have to just, ride the waves, roll with the punches, and have a plan B set in place, whether that's just having a really small, intimate wedding or whether that's completely moving the date altogether.
How has it been working with kind of venues? I'm guessing is where you start, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So your clients, are they talking with them? Are you trying to talk with the venues and just get an idea across the board? Like, are venues making the decision to close or to stay open or to work with clients on lessening their guest list?
Mm-hmm. And that's something I've been doing. I know that my brides are stressed out enough with the uncertainty of this whole thing. So that's my job, to make them more at ease. So I've been communicating with other vendors involved, and I have been talking to the venues and just, there's so many different rules and regulations, I feel like, too, for each venue based on what kind of a facility they are. And so just chatting with them about their thoughts, kind of if they've had any legal mandates to shut down completely or anything like that, is where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Again, it's really, they make the call, and then the clients make the call after the venue decides whether to stay open or to not stay open. We're in a very, very different situation here in Montana. But again, I think a lot of states can kind of fall, they're in our ball game right now too, where the 50 or more mandate is in place, really. And so it kind of leaves it up to the venue owners on what they want to do. And we all, as industry professionals, kind of follow suit. But like New York, California, Washington, it's just not that, it's not the case. Like, for 8 weeks, everything will be shut down. You can't perform services. So you have to work with your clients on that. What do you think at the end of the day, the best option is with your contracts and your clients? Like, Emily, we'll start with you. You perform services. Planners are kind of different, right? You've performed 90%, if not more, of your services by this point. You just haven't put the event together. Right. So you can provide documentation that you are still owed all of these fees, and like you can keep the fees, like refundability and those type of things. But what do you think is kind of best practice as you move into maybe looking at June events and July events, if we get to that point? What does your contract state, and what are you thinking is the best idea moving forward?
So for any clients that are considering canceling or postponing, as Jordan kind of mentioned earlier too, reschedule, postpone, that's what we're really aiming for. And that's what I would urge all of my clients to do. And for me, it might be a little different than for Jordan's company, because when you have a DJ, it's kind of like a one-time service.
Right.
Whereas this planner, it's someone that you've been working with towards your wedding. So I don't anticipate losing that for many of my clients, because we've already come this far, So I feel like it would be fairly easy to just reschedule. And then contract wise, in my contract, I have the act of God clause, which basically protects me if I'm the one that makes the choice to not be there on their wedding day, essentially.
Right.
And then typically, if this were a normal situation where I had a client reschedule, usually we would enter into a whole new contract, and they would have to basically rebook me. So the deposit that's put down to reserve their date is for that. It's to reserve that date. So if they were to reschedule, we would open a new contract, and a new deposit would be required, and then the remaining balance at the end. In this particular situation, that's not something that I plan to do. The original deposit will still be non-refundable because, as you said, I've still been performing the services for, the last 12 months, even more
Right.
than these clients. And so if we do move the date, it would be a new contract. However, the same deposit would still apply for that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Again, going above and beyond there. So like cancellation rescheduling policies are getting changed kind of across the board for us. Like how can we over deliver for our clients, but still perform services, at the end of the day? Jordan, for you, like Emily's stating, you guys are kind of like one and done services. Like you don't do even a whole bunch of communication, right? Until sometimes the week before, a couple weeks before. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Our communication starts a couple weeks before. A lot of the music planning is on our online website that they just go in, plug in what they're looking for. And then 2 weeks ahead of time, we contact them and find out the details. And we're usually pretty good at going off of that.
Yeah. So interesting because you do events too. So what is it looking like for events that have just been canceled altogether? Are some clients like cool with, your contract as it states, like keeping the deposit? How are you, going about working with clients on that?
Yeah. And one of the mistakes, I'm just going to be honest with you, is I've gotten into a habit of having just my wedding sign the full contract instead of the events. I usually just do an invoice, and that's where it got tricky this year. And it's kind of been like, oh, you need to make sure to do that too. And so with the events, they've been pretty cool. We're pushing back a lot of the events just until next year, and we're going to apply what they had paid.
Cool.
And they're not paying nearly as much as a wedding, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, kind of like proms and like graduation parties, I'm guessing, things like that. You can work with school districts and bigger organizations. They understand they're working as business to business, contractual relationships too. So that's cool. I love that they're still working together. But yeah, I mean, Jordan, it's like you're being transparent, but I think the reality of the situation is every event vendor is looking at contracts and oral agreements with people and email agreements with people. And they're like, okay, I probably need to look at my standard operating procedures here and what's happening with booking clients. Like, do we need to kind of update our existing contract? I think all of us across the board for 2021 will be updating contracts. So I love that you said that. That's probably a good way to end here. You guys, thank you so much. Your insight was just super wonderful to hear. I love the DJ's perspective. I love Emily planning perspective, and especially like destination wedding perspective as well, how that kind of changes the ball game too. So you guys, thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thanks, you, Paige. Have a good one.
Yeah. And where can people find you as well? I'm not going to like leave without telling people where to go. So Jordan, where can they find you? And then Emily, you can round it out.
You can find us at RMF_entertainment on Instagram or rmfdjs.com.
Perfect.
And you can find me at emilysummerstudios.com or at Emily Summer Studios on Instagram.
Perfect. And you guys know we will link, I will share. You'll be able to find them. Don't you worry. Are you also working on initiating reschedulings and cancellations with your clients? If so, please don't stress about what type of document you need to sign to ensure you're protected with your business. The Legal Paige created an exclusive rescheduling and cancellation contract bundle for this very purpose. It includes a contract addendum for rescheduling new dates, a rescheduling contract, and a cancellation contract. All three of these documents in a bundle for under $97. Many event industry vendors have purchased, and they have said that this has streamlined reschedulings and cancellations with their clients. Just go to thelegalpage.com today, and it's available right there on the homepage. I am here to help, my friends. Okay, you guys, up next, we have Laura from LS Event Styling. She is a wedding and event planner. Laura, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to get to talk to you, but why don't you introduce yourself to everyone tuning in and let them know where you're located and what you do?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I am a Dayton native. My business is here in Dayton, Ohio, and I have been doing events since 2011, mostly focusing on weddings and other event coordination as well, planning as far as corporate and social events go.
Okay, awesome. So obviously this is probably what's happening right now in the state of the world has impacted your planning business. Am I right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So what I'm really asking everyone is I wanted to get people on this episode that are different industry professionals in the event world and especially wedding world, and just talk about how we as business owners are handling reschedulings and cancellations and working with your clients on all of this. And of course, working with the contract that you have with your client. So if you just want to give us like a brief little, tip or information on what you're doing as a planner, I'd love to hear.
Wonderful. Yeah. So, when you're talking with couples about their wedding date and you're going on appointments with them to meet with their vendors, nobody, even before all of these changes have occurred, nobody ever wants to ask that feared question of what is your cancellation policy?
Right.
And so now I've been very forward thinking to go ahead and ask that, and especially in front of the couple, because as unfortunate as it is, or sometimes it's seen as a bad omen, you just have to ask that question, especially now, because you need to know what a vendor's cancellation or rescheduling policy is so that the investment that you're making doesn't entirely go to waste if you do need to take advantage of that policy.
Right. That makes total sense. As people obviously don't know a lot of times how their various vendors are initiating these cancellation and rescheduling policies. What are you having to deal with right now with clients? Obviously, as a planner, you're probably inundated with working with all of the vendors. Are you taking on the brunt of the work, contacting vendors? Are your clients and you kind of splitting it? What is it looking like right now?
Well, I think that's what the beauty is on a couple's side to hiring a wedding and event planner for the special day, because it's already stressful enough planning the wedding, let alone having to go back and redo certain things when times like these happen and you have no control over it. So to answer your question, yeah, I am taking but I am taking care of all the communication with their vendors as far as figuring out exactly what their rescheduling is, what their cancellation is, how the deposits work, moving forward to finding new dates that they can agree upon for a wedding date. It's tricky, but I do think having somebody on your team like myself and other wedding and event planners is absolutely key in situations like this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Are most clients being really reasonable with you and the services you're performing? It sounds like reschedulings is what is happening for the majority of your clients.
Yes. Yep. Yes. Luckily, I'm very blessed that all of my clients are very understanding that this is no one's fault and things happen and we just have to work through it. I do sit down and talk with them and just ask them a lot of questions. My clients, I ask them a lot of questions to see what they're okay with doing, if it's postponing or full out canceling and then just waiting until the fog lifts so that we can understand what we can plan, what's in our control. So, yeah.
Have you been hit with any pushback from other vendors regarding, deposits, reservation fees, retainers? Have your clients asked for anything back, or are you just simply reaching out and figuring out what their policies are and then relaying that to the client?
For right now, I haven't received any pushback, thankfully. We are at that beginning stage too. Right now in Ohio, everything is shut down. If you leave your house, it is taboo.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So right now, I think we're at the start of it. So if I was not present yet in the planning process where the couples booked a certain vendor, then I'm reaching out and asking for copies of the contract through the client first to see what's written in there so that I am aware before I go and speak with the vendor. If it was a vendor that I helped them bring on to our wedding team for our couple, then I've already asked those questions. And so I have that connection with the vendor, and I'm going back to them before my couple even asks me, just so that I have information and I can give them, the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, no kidding. I was actually just thinking as you're talking here, I'm like, what a bad time for planners, but honestly, what a great time for planners. Your guys' your services could not be better utilized right now. Obviously, it's not an ideal situation to be having to navigate these waters, a couple weeks or a month before a wedding, but gosh, what a relief on behalf of the clients that have hired you that they have someone that can help them during this time and they don't have to do it all themselves. I would venture that maybe some clients are reaching out to wedding planners right now who don't have them and asking for help and asking for their services, because you guys are trained in this, like how to work with vendors across the board.
Yes, exactly. And it's funny you say that because I went live in my Instagram and my Facebook page maybe a couple hours ago today, just offering help. If you don't have a planner, let's talk. Let me see what I can do to help you, just to get your mind just to help you keep calm and get all the information down of things that you need to think about as the couple, because no one was expecting this. Nobody prepares for this sort of thing, I don't think. And so there is that state of initial panic or anxiety that can come with it. But as soon as you write everything down and you have an idea of what it is that you need to work on and what it is that you need to do, that's where a planner really kicks in and helps you out and takes that stress off your shoulders.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Marco and I have a wedding planner for our wedding, and just thinking about, we would probably put the burden on their shoulders there for a situation like this, just because they're experts and trained in working with vendors. So it would make sense for them to be able to kind of navigate this situation. I guess my last question that I have for you is, across the board, are you kind of seeing a general consensus on most vendors, keeping their retainers, deposits, reservation fees? Are some being lenient with when, the client does want to reschedule, maybe pushing invoices out, or are they asking for kind of the full fees to get paid? What's your take on that?
Well, that's a really tricky situation because everybody, runs their businesses differently.
Yeah.
I personally would be very, very shocked if myself or on behalf of a client or the client themselves reaches out to their vendors and says, hey, listen, I really need to postpone my date. Our family, et cetera, whatever the reason is, we need to postpone. And if a vendor came back and said, absolutely not, you're going to lose all your money, blah, 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 I would be very shocked if that was the situation. It would be very unfortunate for that to be a couple's situation with any vendor.
Yeah, I totally feel you. And it's really interesting because talking to you, you're really in the mindset of your clients, like what your clients are feeling. You're empathetic towards them and what's going on with them. And you're like really taking on all of this for them. It's a very different approach. And I think wedding planners as a whole right now are able to serve and over deliver for their clients more than ever. So I would just really appreciate your thoughts on that. It's good to hear. And obviously you've performed a ton of services up until this point. So for every, kind of last thing for every wedding planner out there that's dealing with all of this, as far as your contracts go and the services you've performed and payments that have been made to you thus far, do you have any general suggestions for people on working with clients? Say if they do receive any type of questions regarding a refund or of some type?
Yeah. So I would say use the resources at your fingertips, use them in full. I personally have a CRM that I work with, and in that CRM, I am provided with all kinds of language and verbiage for my contracts. Mm-hmm. And so in it, as soon as the coronavirus was announced and everything was on lockdown, and you want to make sure that your contract to your clients and having that clause in there that says something regarding if we need to reschedule or if we need to cancel, it's the acts of God clause, Mm-hmm. I think definitely making sure that you have that in your contracts. And there are resources available where you can get the wording right that pertains to coronavirus specifically, but definitely including that. And then when it comes to refunds, you can always offer to your clients and your couples, if I doubt that anybody's going to want to cancel working with you entirely. So making sure that you're able to push the proposal, like the payment date out a little bit, maybe, mm-hmm. or making sure that you split up the payments for them. Because the other thing that we need to consider as a society as well is people's jobs are at stake right now. Mm-hmm. Knowing your couple and your clients and knowing what their situation is, I think is very important. So you want to have a strong relationship with them, and knowing what their situation is helps you make those decisions.
Yeah, honestly, just ensure that you're being a good business owner as well as being empathetic towards your clients. I think that's a great suggestion for everyone here. Well, Laura, thank you so much for jumping on this episode and recording with us. I am so excited to kind of share with everyone how different vendors are approaching this situation. There's a good consensus here across the board about what people are doing, and I hope it's helpful for people tuning in to kind of get insight in that respect. But where can people find you, Laura?
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook at LS Event Styling. That is also my website. So I'm pretty much the same name everywhere.
Perfect. And we'll make sure to link that in the show notes and everywhere when we promote this episode. Thanks again and have a good one.
Thank you.
Wow, you guys, what an amazing lineup of wedding vendors. Thank you so much to Laura, Tyler, Emily, Jordan, Abby, and Alex for your time and your thoughts regarding working through the next steps with clients in the midst of COVID-19. I hope you all enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I love it, you guys, when our event industry can really come together and work through hard times like this as a group. While I know that it's a difficult time for many, many, many people, including event industry vendors and clients, I want you all to know that the Legal Paige community is here to help, and I am here to help as the Legal Paige in any way I can. So please feel free to join our free private Facebook community. It's called the Legal Paige Community. You can just type that into the search bar in Facebook. And if you're a business owner, you can request to join. And I want to continue this conversation with you all. Until next time, my Legal Paige friends, see you then. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.